Welcome back from the break. I'm Annisa Omar. Now, recently it was announced that Hillary Clinton will be the Democratic presidential candidate. But decades before her, or indeed Barack Obama, there was Shirley Chisholm. Here's a short video of her and her achievements.
In the American people. I believe that we are smart enough to correct our mistakes. I believe we are intelligent enough to recognize the talent, energy, and dedication which all Americans, including women and minorities, have to offer. I know from my travels to the cities and small towns of America that we have a vast potential which can and must be put to constructive use in getting this great nation together. I know that millions of Americans from all walks of life agree with me that leadership does not mean putting the ear to the ground to follow public opinion, but to have the vision of what is necessary and the courage to make it possible.
A very inspiring lady indeed. Now the EU referendum looms large and registered voters will have to decide whether Britain should remain in or leave the European Union. Immigration and the economy has been at the heart of the recent debates. But what does this mean for the black community? Has the black votes had a role to play in the campaign? We have here in the studio Director of Operation Black Vote, Simon Woolley. And later we'll be looking at how black women may vote in the upcoming referendum. And we have the blogger and writer Adebola, Showemimo, who will be joining us later on the line to discuss black women and their say on the subject. So Simon, what is the black vote and how is it indicative to the EU referendum campaign?
Well, the black vote in this critical debate around should we stay or should we go in the EU, the black vote will be crucial. There are 4 million African, Asian and Caribbean votes, politically black, non-white. They could easily decide who wins and who goes. So we had our first campaign, which was to get people to register to vote. And many of our communities were not registered, but we registered over 70,000. Now in this last week of electioneering, we're saying to our communities that you must stand up and be counted and go to the ballot box. We want to see an unprecedented number of Africans, Asians, Caribbeans go to the ballot box and put their mark, put their cross and demand equality.
And what stakes do we have, staying in or staying out of the
Well,
EU?
There's lots of big debates. I think that for our communities, there are 3 things that I want to put on the table. One is prosperity. Where does prosperity is best served for our communities? Is prosperity served if we're in or if we're out? That's the first thing. The second point is equality. Where is equality best protected? With the legislation within the EU institutions or with the UK? And the third element, and particularly after the tragedy that has happened up north, that where is decency best served? Within or without? Now, Operation Black Vote does not seek to tell people where or how to vote. But what we want to say is those three issues, prosperity, equality, decency, must be at the forefront of people's minds. But we must go to the polls, because if we don't, we leave it to people who, at best, don't understand our black communities, and at worst, don't like us. It's our duty, it's our responsibility.
And you say don't like us, and we know Nigel Farage's, from the UKIP's reaction to the poster campaign, very interesting poster campaign put up by the Operation Black Vote.
Yes.
He's saying it's divisive. What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, well, we sought to hold up a mirror to the EU debate, which has become, I guess, at the centre about immigration, but also really about racism. And so people that are on this immigration bandwagon very quickly point the finger at black people and say, you're the problem. You've taken our jobs. You're taking our homes. You are ruining this country. And the rise of racism, the rise of Islamophobia, at times is off the leash. And we're saying to Nigel Farage or anyone that will listen, our vote's powerful. We can vote any bigot down wherever we want. And we want to be treated decently. We want it to be treated with the respect that we deserve. Some in our community want to leave, some want to remain. I want people to go to the polls with the relevant information so they can make an informed judgment.
An informed judgment, indeed. In terms of working with the community, what does Operation Black Vote do to help?
Yes, well, we seek to encourage and inspire our communities to have equality. Well, actually, we also want to defend the 20 million black people in Europe.
Within the Commonwealth?
Within Europe and the Commonwealth, okay. But in Europe, because this debate is about Europe. Who's going to defend them if we leave? It's a question that needs to be answered. Many of our brothers and sisters on mainland Europe don't have citizenship rights. Who is going to talk for them? I'm saying.
And what difference has this made in terms of raising consciousness, and particularly in regards to the quote-unquote controversial posters? For instance, I know that there's a poster on the seesaw of, yes. of a white male and an Asian woman, yes. And he's pointing at, yes. the Asian woman to indicate, understand the equality in terms of their votes. Well, what were you trying to say in terms of those posters?
We were trying to say that in this immigration debate, it is one short step away from racism, and in which people are inspired to be racially abusive. You know, here in the capital where we are now, more than 50% of black people have been racially abused. I would argue that some of this, in no small measure, is due to the toxicity of the immigration debate that seeks to blame black people. What we're saying is, stop the toxicity, stop the rabidness of this EU debate and see us as the great potential that we are.
Why do you think people don't see our potential? Is it because there's a lack of diversity within the media, within civil society and the wider scope of black people?
I think it's worse than that. I think there's a daily deluge of race baiting, of racial hatred, of pointing the fingers, first of all, at immigrants in general, but that quickly transcends to black people. So when you look on YouTube, you look at a racist YouTube rant on the tube, and it's invariably towards a black person. And so the rise of xenophobia, the rise of racism and Islamophobia is directed towards us. And we're saying to politicians on both sides, stop it. Behave better than that.
And why do you think race has fallen off the political agenda?
Because there's an indifference towards our plight. There's an indifference towards our struggle. Right now, there's a blame game. And in the time in which people are fearful, a time where people are losing their jobs and austerity is still pervasive, people are seeking to blame people like me and you for that problem. And we're saying, hang on a second, we are net contributors, we have creativity, we have dynamism, and we should vote. We should vote in unprecedented numbers, and there's the three things: decency, prosperity, and equality. We go to the polls next Thursday, this Thursday coming, with that in mind. And I think that justice will be done.
Bringing it back to the political agenda.
We bring it back to the political agenda. We bring it back to say we have a voice too, and we demand to be listened to.
Thank you for your comments, Simon. On the line, we have Adebola, Showemimo, a blogger and a writer who wrote an article for the publication Black Ballad, citing the views of various black women and their views on the referendum. So, Adebola, What are black women saying in regards to the EU referendum?
So I think in regards to when I initially put the post, gave out everyone the option of coming to me, I think there was a lot of discrepancy on what was needed to be said, but there was a clear understanding of the fact that employment rights are to be looked after. So a lot of people, a fair amount of people actually wanted to remain, and simply because employment rights are protected within the EU, and also the fact that they knew that they had come from a social economic background. There was also a particular lady that I spoke to who was from a Muslim background, and she even said that as a Muslim black woman, she doesn't feel that leaving the EU would even be a chance for her to even express how she feels, or even for if we left the EU, how would we be protected in terms of the current government that we have right now. There was a sense of fear and not sure what's going to happen if we was to leave the EU as black women, and it's quite worrying, to be honest with you.
So what were the particular findings that you found from your article? Was racism a large part of it?
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I initially wrote the article was because of the whole issue with the Nigel Farage and Imran Morgan as well, because that was a huge backlash on Twitter, and it was a sort of, I mean, some of the tweets were saying angry black girl, and I think at the end of the day, we input into this country, and we do have a voice, and why should we not have a voice? It's extremely important for black women to know what's going on, and important for us to express our opinion and our right to vote in the EU referendum. So come next week, Thursday, I would expect as many black women to go and put their votes through.
So we'll bring Simon back into the conversation. In terms of your reaction, I could see your head nodding. What do you think?
No, I think I think really enlivened by Adebola's kind of critique and intervention, because it clearly is very important for black women to be empowered, to be involved in this debate, particularly when that debate is difficult and attacks are focused towards us. She's been brave, and she's having this debate, and of course she's getting with black women to talk about equality, to talk about where our best interests lie, either as Muslims or as black women. So more power to her, but it's the engagement that's important. It's the fact that we're having this conversation, because of course some black people say to us, and I'm sure to Adebola too, look, on mainland Europe it's pretty racist, so why should black people be involved? And we say, look, so if we're not involved, how can we protect the 20 million black people that are there? Surely it's for the black British, like Adebola and us, to say we demand justice not only for black people here in this country, but also in the 27 nations on mainland Europe too.
I think it's important to point out, whilst we've got you here,
yes,
is that Operation Black Vote's not just for the black vote, but it's also for the Asian vote and other ethnic minorities.
You know, we're for tackling racism, tackling race inequality, and so our black is political black, African, Asian, Caribbean, non-white. We are all subject to different forms of racism, but together, 30 million black and Asian Europeans, together we're saying no to racism, yes to equality.
So how do we bring back the idea of unity?
It's a very good question, and we have to strive for it, because there's a lot of divide and rule, not just within the African communities, the Caribbean communities, but the broader, I guess, black and Asian diaspora. And I would say, look, if we are to defeat the persistent racism that looks at us, whether we're African, Asian or Caribbean, as inferior, how do we effectively address that, push back on that? And I say unity is king. Unity is key. When we do that, we're not asking for justice. We're not asking to be listened to. We can demand it. We can demand it in local elections, in general elections, and in this EU referendum, we can put equality centre stage.
And to bring back the EU referendum and the idea of women and their particular vote, Adebola, I know you mentioned the case of Morgan and the backlash that she had received from speaking to Nigel Farage. Why do you think she had such a backlash?
I think it was something foreign, to be honest with you, for the public. I didn't think, I mean, there's this sense of, in my opinion, that in a a tendency of culture that black women, or even just the black community or the non-white community, don't know a lot about politics or know about what is actually going on around them. So I think it was interesting when one person was able to speak out, then it was something foreign for anyone to take and even consider for anyone like Morgan herself to even speak on. I think also that it came as quite a shock even to myself, and it was very impressive for her to even say, do you know what, I am going to speak up and I'm going to stand for what I believe in and speak out, and good on her.
I think we have these debates. Some of us want to leave, some of us want to remain. We should have these respectful discussions, unpick our arguments, challenge each other. And
challenge each other, indeed. But the argument was also that Nigel Farage had all sort of quietened or not let Morgan speak. Right. So in the idea of democracy, do you think there's not enough of a one voice from within the black community, whether woman or man, to speak?
There needs to be many voices, Morgan's, Adebola's, our own. We've used the services of Saatchi and Saatchi, the media giant, if you like, to use these as the controversial, some said. I think the one with the seesaw, I hope you'll be able to show that, was a reflection of a toxic debate. And the second one, where we used the Bullingdon Club, where we showed Cameron and Boris Johnson in their old Etonian Oxbridge days and put black faces in place, was to say this EU election is not for the few, is not for the privileged, but for the many. It belongs to us all, and it's better served when we all engage in it.
So just to finish with Adebola, do you think there's going to be a big turnout of black women for the EU referendum?
I would certainly hope so. Definitely have promoted for people to make sure they register to vote, which was at the beginning of this month. I would certainly hope that people do take their initiative and express their view and vote, because on the 23rd of June, it's everyone's choice, not just mine or anyone here. It's all of our choices, so we should all make a decision for our own self.
Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time.
Okay.
But thank you for your comments, Adebola, and for you, Simon. I want to thank all my guests on this show and to you at home for watching. Don't forget to watch this programme again and past programmes using the IC player on our website, www.islamchannel.tv. We now leave you with scenes of hundreds of Namibians and marching against an expensive new parliament building on Thursday, calling for the money to be spent on schools and hospitals instead. We'll see you next week. Have a good afternoon.